You utterly ruined my
Ever
evening.
watched a so-called untouchable power couple build their empire on intimidation only, to have one calm, data-armed woman pull the pin and bring the whole structure down in public? Stay close, because this story isn't about a spilled drink. It's about what happens when someone underestimates a mind that knows how systems really fail. Kneel down. Victoria Sterling's shriek ripped through the polished hush of Lardon like a pressure wave. 200 diners froze, mid-bite forks hanging in the air, heads snapping toward the VIP table where the millionaire's wife stood rigid as a queen issuing a decree. Her diamond bracelet threw sharp sparks of light as she pointed at the black waitress in front of her. I said, "Kneel down and apologize for ruining my $20,000 Chanel dress on the marble floor." The red wine glimmered in uneven puddles, evidence of a spill that looked accidental to anyone who hadn't watched the choreography. Victoria had leaned just a little too far, lifted her glass just a little too quickly, and gasped at exactly the right time. A stage failure designed to force a human being into the lowest possible posture in front of an audience. Emani Rose, young, black, 26, hair pulled back, uniform crisp, stood perfectly still, fingers gripped around a white cloth napkin that trembled ever so slightly. The restaurant waited for her to break. Instead, Emani raised her chin. "No?" Her voice cut clean, cold, and level through the suffocating silence. You could feel the air tighten, the way a room tightens right before something expensive shatters. Victoria's face flushed crimson, perfect makeup unable to hide the rage coiling underneath. She stepped closer, designer heels clicking on marble like a countdown. "Excuse me," she hissed, a whisper loud enough to travel to every corner. "Did you just tell me no?" The other diners pretended to keep eating, but the charge in the room said everyone was listening. This wasn't dinner. This was a live experiment in dominance. I said no, Mrs. Sterling. Emani's voice didn't wobble. Her heart was slamming in her chest. Sure, but her spine stayed straight. "I won't kneel and apologize for something I didn't do." Victoria blinked like her operating system had never been coded to handle defiance. In her world of private jets and charity galas, no from people like Emani didn't exist. Her mouth opened, hunting for a new attack vector. "How dare you!" She threw the words like a glass. "Do you know who I am? My husband owns half this city." She whirled for backup and found it in David Thompson, the restaurant manager, scurrying over with the speed of a man trained to protect wealth at any cost. Thompson had built a career on reading power gradients and positioning himself on the profitable side of them. His eyes flicked between Victoria and Emani, the calculus fast and ugly. "Mrs. Sterling, I am so terribly sorry," he stammered, wringing his hands as though sympathy could erase liability. Then he turned to Emani, disgust leaking through his professionalism. "Rose, what have you done now?" The question carried the baked-in assumption that she was guilty, that this was her nature, that her record didn't matter. Emani had worked 8 months at Le Jardin without a single complaint, out-earning servers with twice her tenure because she did the job like a professional. Clean execution, no drama, no waste. But in that room, her performance data got overwritten by Victoria's status. "I suggest you apologize immediately," Thompson continued. "Mrs. Sterling is one of our most valued customers, translation. Her loyalty comes with a price tag, and yours doesn't." Emani's voice got firmer. "I will not apologize for something I didn't do." Every word steadied her more. Her mother's hospital bills were crushing, nearly $30,000 for chemo labs, infections, the kind of medical debt that eats families alive. This job was her lifeline, but dignity wasn't a negotiable line item. "If you fire me for telling the truth." "So be it." The room inhaled. Victoria's fury shifted into a smile sharp as a blade. She loved this more than submission. She wanted destruction. "Fire her," she said lightly, like ordering dessert. "No, firing is too good for someone like her. I want her to understand her place." She started circling Emani, projecting for the audience. "You people need to learn respect. You need to understand there are consequences for stepping out of line." Everybody heard the coded "you people." Phones slid out of pockets and purses. The weight of being recorded pressed on Emani's shoulders. She could already see tomorrow's headlines. Uppity waitress refuses to apologize. Internet jury ready to convict. But whatever part of her had been built by her mother's grit and her grandfather's stubborn pride refused to bend. My place, Emani said quietly, is not on my knees. Victoria's face twisted. Your place is wherever I say it is. I know the mayor, the police chief, every major business leader in this city. One call and you'll never work here again. She snapped her fingers like a whip. The threat hung in the air. Servers nearby went pale. They'd all seen powerful people crash careers for sport. Thompson seized the moment like a man who thinks he's won. Rose, you're suspended immediately. Clean out your locker and leave. Security will escort you. Two burly guards appeared, their presence designed to add a final layer of humiliation. Staff averted their eyes not because they agreed, but because solidarity doesn't pay rent. Victoria smiled, already rehearsing the story for her next luncheon. Then Emani tightened the napkin in her fist. Inside its folds, stitched in delicate thread, were the words nobody in that dining room knew. Dr. Emani Rose, MBA. Not a fantasy. A credential. A life she'd had to temporarily shelve when money ran out and her mother got sick. The title wasn't ego, it was a reminder of capacity. She looked into Victoria's cold blue eyes and saw not defeat, but calculation. This isn't over, Emani said softly. Her voice carried a promise that made Victoria's smile falter for a heartbeat. The guards escorted her out. The room thought they'd witnessed her being crushed. They'd actually just watched her step onto a different chessboard. Rain drummed against Emani's apartment windows that night as she sat across from her mother, Dorothy Rose, at a small kitchen table. Dorothy was fragile in a faded pink robe, chemo having stolen weight and color, but her eyes still burned with the fire that had raised her daughter to never bow to bullies. Tell me what happened, baby. Emani recounted every detail. Pride flickered across Dorothy's face, then quiet rage. That woman thinks she can break you because of the color of your skin and your uniform, Dorothy said. She doesn't know who she's dealing with. Dorothy's smile held the kind of secret only a mother who sacrificed everything for her child's education can hold. Emani exhaled. No, Mama, she doesn't. She opened her laptop, the same beat-up machine that had carried her through 2 years at Harvard Business School before life forced her into service work. Her fingers moved with the muscle memory of someone who'd once lived inside models and audits. Victoria Sterling thinks she knows everything about everyone, she said, but she's about to learn what happens when you build decisions on bad assumptions. She started digging, not with anger, but with method. Society pages, business filings, property records, donation shells, zoning permits. The digital exhaust rich people leave everywhere because they assume nobody's looking. The first layer was typical old money noise. Country clubs, foundation galas, political donations. Interesting, Emani murmured, building a file the way engineers assemble a failure analysis. Not with one dramatic clue, but patterns. A company bleeding money while broadcasting prosperity is a classic sign of rot. Jessica Martinez, her Harvard study partner, now a senior auditor. Girl, I saw the video. You okay? Flame emojis, then another message. Emani typed back, I'm fine. What do you know about Sterling Enterprises? Jessica called immediately. Her voice dropped low. Emani, be careful. Sterling Enterprises is under SEC investigation. I can't say much, but their quarterly reports are off. The inconsistencies would make your professors weep. The next morning, Emani got a text from Thompson upgrading her suspension to termination. Cowardly, predictable, and too late to matter. She deleted it. Another alert popped up. Sterling Enterprises stock down 12% after hours. Smart money was running. Emani screenshotted it. Timing like that doesn't happen by accident. That afternoon, Victoria returned to Le Jardin like a conquering general, laughing with friends, retelling the story loud enough for the room to hear. Some people don't know their place, she proclaimed. Servers moved carefully, aware management had threatened them against sympathy. But 2 tables away, a woman in a business suit sat taking notes. That woman was Emani. She'd come back not as staff, but as customer emergency credit card. Clothes that snapped her from invisible to professional. It was a grim lesson she learned early. In certain systems, the wrapper changes the response. Victoria didn't notice her at first. She was too busy bragging. And in that bragging, she started leaking offshore accounts. Asset vacations, tax flexibility said, with laughing confidence. The irony was almost beautiful. The same arrogance that fueled humiliation was now producing admissible confession. Emani recorded quietly tagged the file and left. 3 days later, she was back in uniform by design. Maria Santos, one of the few servers brave enough to stay in touch, had slipped her a private catering gig for Victoria's invitation-only dinner with 12 city power brokers. Emani checked the tiny recorder in her pocket. It was about data. The private room hummed with the relaxed talk of people who believe rules are for other people. Victoria presided in a Valentino gown, explaining international banking like it was a favorite hobby. Money becomes wonderfully fluid, she said. Numbers dance between accounts. People chuckled. Richard Sterling talked shell companies with casual craftsmanship. Layering, he said, sipping scotch. A owns B, owns C. By the time anyone traces it, it leads to a Cayman P.O. box. That's conspiracy in plain English. Victoria followed with the knockout line, smiling. Some of our liquid assets are taking an extended vacation in Switzerland until this unfortunate SEC situation resolves. Obstruction. Laundering. Spoken like weather updates. Emani logged every word. Then her cover blew. Victoria squinted, recognition snapping in. Wait, I know you. You're that waitress. Silence clamped the room. Security, Victoria screamed. Guards moved in. Guests leaned back, suddenly sweating. When you've got secrets, the scariest thing in the room is a witness with nothing left to lose. Emani backed toward the service door, calm. I was helping Maria, she said. And I have to say, this has been an educational evening. She let the words hang, just enough for them to taste fear. I've learned so much about creative accounting. Victoria's voice shook now. Get her out. Arrest her. But Emani had what she came for. She turned for a final look at the room full of designer-clad criminals. Thank you for a lovely evening, she said politely, like a server finishing a shift. I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Then she was gone. The evidence was already copied and stored in multiple places. Victoria could scream all she wanted. She was late. Emani met Marcus Washington the next morning. Harvard-trained attorney, civil rights edge white-collar takedown record. His office overlooked the city that had tried to grind people like them into silence. Letting her ruin more lives. Marcus listened to the recordings. His face changed from professional interest to controlled excitement. We've got tax evasion, money laundering, obstruction, bribery, in bulk. He started coordinating with federal authorities immediately. But the retaliation began fast. 2 private investigators showed up in his lobby asking about Emani. Marcus made protective copies, pushed filings to the FBI before the Sterlings could claim illegality. Assume you're watched, he told her. Don't go home tonight. Then Emani's phone buzzed. The hospital. Dorothy had crashed, secondary infection, emergency surgery recommended, $50,000. She didn't have it. The corridor smelled like disinfectant in dread. Dr. Martinez explained the stakes. Without surgery, she won't survive. Emani stared at the estimate. Her whole case against the Sterlings was moving like a freight train, but her mother's timeline wasn't waiting. 3 days later, Thompson called with a second chance, offer lower pay, fewer hours. Victoria specifically requested her back. Emani knew what it was. Control. A cat bringing a mouse close. She took it anyway. Because engineers and mothers' daughters understand constrained optimization. Sometimes you accept a bad local condition to win the global outcome. Save the life, then finish the fight. Victoria's birthday gala at Le Jardin was a cathedral of excess. 50 elites, crystal, caviar, wines that cost more than most families' groceries. Victoria stood at center stage in custom Versace, smiling like a predator. Tonight is about knowing where we belong in the natural order, she announced, eyes finding Emani. Throughout the night, she escalated the humiliation with calculated precision, forcing Emani to serve head table, making her visible, making her small. Then came the main course performance. Friends, Victoria said loudly, meet Emani, a lesson in second chances. Tell everyone what you've learned about respect. Spotlight, hearing her mother's machines in her mind, the beep of borrowed time, the reason she'd swallowed so much already. She began softly. I've learned everyone has their place. Victoria's smile widened. Then Emani's voice strengthened, not with anger, but with certainty. I've learned some people think money buys respect, that it buys the right to humiliate others without consequence. The air cooled. I've learned there are people in this room who think they're untouchable, that their crimes will stay hidden because they can buy silence. Victoria snapped, Enough! You're here to serve. Emani met her eye. You're right, Mrs. Sterling. I am here to serve, but not the way you think. She pulled out her phone. I'm here to serve justice. Before Victoria's scream could land, Emani connected her phone to the restaurant system. Marcus Washington's calm voice filled the room, reading a federal warrant live filed that afternoon. Guests shot upright. Phones flew out. Faces blanched. The recordings followed, piping Richard and Victoria's own confessions into the same room where they'd built their myth. Offshore layering, asset vacations, bribery, laughing toasts to fraud. The party didn't just die, it imploded. Doors burst open. FBI agents rolled in, badges catching chandelier light. Victoria Sterling, you're under arrest, Agent Sarah Chen said, voice flat with authority. The handcuffs clicked over wrists used to diamond bracelets. Victoria's composure shattered. You don't understand. I offered you money. I taught you your place, she sobbed. She watched the system finally enforce its own specs. 6 months later, federal court. Sentences landed like final stress tests. 15 years for Victoria, 20 for Richard. Their mansion, cars, yacht, and offshore money were seized. $200 million recovered and redirected to the charities they drained. Dorothy's treatment was fully covered. She recovered slowly, then solidly, until the hospital beeps faded into memory. Emani built Rose Financial Consulting downtown, using the same forensic skills that had brought down the Sterlings to help families and minority-owned businesses fight predatory debt and build real wealth. LeJardin cleaned house. Thompson was fired. Policies changed. Servers gained protection and advancement based on merit, not proximity to power. On a quiet Tuesday, Emani returned to LeJardin with her mother to celebrate Dorothy's clean bill of health. She carried the embroidered napkin in her purse, not hidden, not defensive, just a reminder of who she'd always been. A young black server brought their wine, confident in a workplace reshaped by a woman who refused to kneel. And as Emani and Dorothy clinked glasses, what hung in the air wasn't revenge. It was resolution, proof that arrogance is a brittle material, and when truth meets preparation, even the loudest empire can collapse under its own bad design.